Let's talk about trade. You bring up trade. Is a trade war good, and is it easy to win?
Trade war is not good, and it wouldn't be easy to win. But when you've got a trading partner that, from industrial espionage to subsidizing currencies to or manipulating currencies, subsidizing particular industries, dumping the glut of their production, China, I think President Trump was right on. We cannot keep getting punched by trading partners that are supposed to be in a reciprocal relationship. And I think where we've ended up is about right where it needed to be, because we were sweeping it under the rug for so many years. And I think now China knows, which is where we've ended up with the tariffs. And I know there have been some repercussions because they've hit back. They're more dependent on our economy than we are on theirs.
You are running for senator in a state that has soybean producers and pork producers. Talk to them, because they're the ones who have just had the tariffs levied on their products.
And for anybody that's going to be hit by a retaliation like that, sure. Pork producers and soybean producers are still the lowest cost producers in the world. They'll find, I think, products in other markets, and I don't think it's going to go beyond where it is. It's a dynamic world, a dynamic economy, and I think the main thing that we take from this is that we cannot be involved in so-called fair free deals. We need to make sure that our trading partners are living up to their side of the bargain.
Well, I'm not going to object to that, but when you talk about soybean and pork, that they'll find other deals, couldn't steel and aluminum be bought other places? You need to buy Chinese steel and aluminum?
I think that goes back to your point earlier. It cannot devolve into something more than what it is. I think it's right now at the point where hopefully this will be a good lesson to other trading partners. I doubt China will take it any further, because they're that dependent on our economy.
You voted for a gas tax. When you talk about spending in Washington, D.C., how do you square the circle with your own votes?
To me, it's a much different context. We did that within a state that has a cash balance, that operates in the black, and due to the dereliction, even within our own state, of kicking a long-term issue down the road, that needed to be addressed. And of my constituents, who I was responsible for in House District 63, the one charge they put to me is do something about the poor condition of our roads. And that throughout the state was pretty well reflected. And if you've been traveling the state like I have for the last 6-7 months, it's still not being addressed, and that's because we're so early in the stage of it. But if we didn't do what we did responsibly, we are now in the catbird seat of one of the few states that has addressed it. And for the one thing that a government should be doing, and doing it correctly, is taking care of your infrastructure. And when, even before I got there, we had taken income taxes down, gotten rid of the inheritance tax, capped property taxes, all things that are responsible that make this state a functional, well-respected across the United States as being a state government to pattern after. I think it was a classic case of knowing the difference between raising taxes where it's consumed and you have nothing to show for it. We've got something tangible, and you're just going to start seeing the benefits of it. And if it wouldn't have been for that responsibility, we'd be getting more tires blown driving across our state.
You get elected. It is day one, January 3rd, right? It'll be January 3rd, 2019. There you are in Washington, D.C. Where do you start? Where is Senator Mike Braun, day one? What's the first thing you're going to cut?
First thing I'm going to do is just like in the debate when you asked me twice. We are never going to fix what ails Washington if you think you can do it by asking everybody else other than your, say, key backers and whoever is interested in having you do something selectively. I call it selective conservatism. And until you take the simple approach like we do in the business world in finding trade-offs within limited resources, the other thing, we have to earn our revenues. In government, you're guaranteed those. So you don't even have the most difficult part of the equation of running a business is getting customers to pay you for a service or a product. Here, politicians and bureaucrats get it, and they don't have the backbone or the discipline to live within their means. So I go and don't start looking for any place that I'd like to hold sanctimoniously to keep funding. I think you need to do it across the board.
On the Second Amendment, should there be any limitations, and if so, which ones?
There's Second Amendment embedded into the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. I think that every time there's an issue, the knee-jerk reaction is to go after guns. And to me, that deflects the problem from where it really is. I think that I've got my first gun when I was 10 years old, still use it. So the difference,
what is it?
It's a single-shot 20-gauge Stevens, and I use it when I actually hunt all throughout the whole year. I see one of my opponents has got shooting a gun on one of his commercials. I've had guns. I know how to take them apart and clean them, and I've used them. And I don't know if my competition in the primary has done that, or Joe Donnelly, but it's important to me because it's been part of my growing up in culture. And I think whenever you try to abridge the rights of people that have not broken the law, and that when it's constitutionally guaranteed, I'm not going to go there. I think the true source of issues with guns are the people that use them. And where we have the strongest gun laws in places like Chicago, obviously by making stricter gun laws, it's not going at the core of the problem. I think that is reflected basically in cultural things, the status of the family, how you're raised, all needs to be taken into question. And when you look at the recent shootings, I think there are real issues on school security. Here in Indiana, we're ahead of the game. We've been out front, and I know in our local schools 15 years ago it was difficult to get in there, and of course you can always breach a system. But law enforcement, to me, missed cues down there where it was right out there on social media. And is that due to the fact we've been too politically correct when people are advertising that they're going to have a gun rage? I think mental illness has got to be addressed for what it is, and anybody that shows that kind of susceptibility can't have a gun. But if you're trying to do anything that's going to do a broad blanket like big government wants to do to solve a problem that's specific, I'm not going to be for it.
Is the VA the most efficient way to take care of our veterans?
Not the way it currently is. And that's a classic example of government being run by bureaucrats without having people like me that could size up that situation very quickly. When I just recently learned that most of our veterans hospitals and facilities are in the north and the east, when we've got more veterans disproportionately in the south and the west now, that is something, if you were a logistics owner like I am of a business, you would fix that before it became a problem. Access. When I was, DuBois County, I think, has the most veterans per capita in the state, my home county. When I heard they were having to go to Marion, Illinois, Louisville, Indianapolis for a basic checkup, now that's being addressed. Why did it take so long? So through using aspects of privatization to where it's a better choice, we need to combine that with practical solutions from guys like me that could fix it without having to spend a lot of time to do it.
Question, sir. Would you put the military on the border to take down a caravan?
I think the military is what just on the news recently, and I think if that's at your disposal, first of all, President Bush and Obama had used the military before on the border. I think that when the need is there and when you've got all the resources that we're spending on the military, that's a question of national security along with border security, and I like what Trump's doing there.
If you would, sir, a top three, can you rank our top three geopolitical threats?
An unsecure border, number one. Number two, people that we're defending the world and spending a lot of money on it and not getting our fair share out of our partners. And I think places like Iran and North Korea, finally, we're addressing them for what they are. And that dynamic, look at North Korea, that's changed with President Trump's leadership.